Now, oil exploration firm Tullow has indicated that it expects to return to some strong profits for this year, 2022, after years of losses. Now, the move is expected to impact positively on the country's earnings from the oil sector. The oil exploration firm ended 2021 recording another loss of $81 million. However, this represents an improvement over the $1.2 billion loss recorded in 2020. Rahul Deer is Group Chief Executive of Tullow Oil and has been speaking to George Rafi in an interview.
Today, as we look at Tullow, particularly as we look at our business here in Ghana, we've outlined an acceleration of our Ghana value maximization plan. So we're looking at a $2.8 billion capital spend between 22 and 25 in the Jubilee and 10 fields. We're looking at sustaining the gains in terms of operating performance. And we're looking at increasing kind of our drilling capacity. So we're looking at bringing in a second rig here in Ghana. And all that, George, will translate into, we believe, a production level of about 150,000 barrels from Jubilee and 10 by 2025. So compared to sort of 107, 108,000 barrels. So quite a material increase in production, but directly as a consequence of the work we've done and the investments.
Not boxing you to any strict timeline, but when are you hoping to getting back to some strong winning ways in terms of posting some strong earnings, because you've been able to reduce the loss position and looking at all the things that you're putting in place? Are we hoping that by next year we could see these things that you put in place hit the bottom line, or maybe in the next 2 years?
Yeah, I think so. I think that this year certainly, well, 21 was an important year because from a core earnings perspective, we were very much sort of profitable, but we were paying for historic decisions because we had negative earnings, as you said, which were substantially less than what we had in the year before. But still, they were impacted by write-offs of investments that we had made in the past, unprofitable investments we had made in the past. I think a lot of that is done. The balance sheet is clean. So as we look forward, we're really looking at profitability being driven by the performance of the business as opposed to being weighed by historic investments. So I'm quite confident about profitability this year, and certainly kind of as we recover production from both Jubilee and 10, we should see increases in profitability going forward.
What has influenced your decision to take over the Jubilee FPSO? Because I thought that as a strategy, you wanted to focus on your core competence and allow other service providers to help you. Help me out in that decision. When I saw that in your financials, even the half year, that operational update, and now was firmed up in the full year results. What is the rationale behind it?
So really, if you think about where Tullow is today, and this is an important thing. So we have a very simple statement that defines a lot of our actions, which is every barrel matters and every dollar counts, right? And what that means when you think about it, George, is that it's about an attention to detail in every aspect of the business that we do, right? So remember that. So if you keep that in mind and then you look at the operating performance on reliability, safety at the Jubilee, at the K&K FPSO, we've seen quite a substantial shift. So I'll give you one number. So in 2019, the uptime at the K&K FPSO was about 84%. Last year, it was 98%, right? So if you ask me why, and in that why is the answer to your question. So the one simple thing between 2019 and 2021 has been a continual increase in the influence that Tullow has had on the operations in K&K. And recognizing the direct impact of that, we believe that in order to sustain those gains, the logical thing for us is to take over the operatorship ourselves. You talked about the core competence. I believe that a company like ours, really, K&K is a really important asset for us. It's an important asset for Ghana. And I think given the significance of that and the point that every barrel matters, every dollar counts, and looking at the improvement in the performance that we've been able to achieve by just increasing our influence, we feel strongly that really this is something that we should be driving ourselves. We'll still continue to work with a lot of the same suppliers, a lot of the local partners that are there. We'll look to increase the capability in the local content. But when we look at this, a lot of the key decisions around planning, maintenance, focusing on asset integrity, those are all we want to drive because of the criticality of the asset.
What will be the impact of this move on employment in terms of either taking up these service providers or bringing in more competent hands to help you with this decision?
So look, I mean, local content is at the heart of what Tullow does. I was in Takoradi on Tuesday and was very pleased because I visited some of the fabrication yards. And it's fascinating because we're assembling complex mega steel structures, which till recently were not possible here. The last time we assembled these structures or fabricated them was in Houston, right? So I think that is the sort of thing we believe is possible. And if we're driving the O&M business, we feel that we can improve and uplift the competence. We can improve and uplift the scale and scope of what we're doing kind of on a local content perspective. So a big driver for us has been to say, if we're much more in control, we'll be able to not just deliver local content from a kind of ticking the box point of view, if I may say so, but really drive local content from real competency and skill building. So kind of like my fabrication example.
So if I get from you, we could be seeing more local hands coming on board with respect to the decision that you've taken to take over the FPSO.
Absolutely. And I think you can see that reflected, George, already even in our organization today here, is we have a lot more of our Ghanaian colleagues in key decision-making roles already in even prior to this kind of O&M transformation. So I think that's very much at the heart of our business. I think that's a critical element of our being successful. I personally have been very impressed with the capability set that we're seeing, whether it's in welding to detailed engineering and planning to, I was at the K&K FPSO late last year and seeing some of the workers there. So I think that's the right destination.
What is the outlook when it comes to local content? I've seen the pictures myself forwarded from one of your workers here, and I was so excited. What is the outlook in terms of local content when it comes to Tullow, in terms of equipping them with skills, bringing them on board to do all these interesting stuff that is going to aid exploration?
So look, I think the key is there's no silver bullet. I think it requires consistent effort. It requires a passion from our side, which is there. And it's a building block by building block. So it's training that welder who can then build skill set to an international standard. And it's encouraging someone like the owners of the Flat confidence that they can actually go and put risk capital and create the first Ghanaian flag supply vessel. It's the owners of the fabrication yards to put in the risk capital. So I think it's a systematic kind of effort. I think it's a key to that is really what I call the kind of Ghana value maximization plan, because what that does is it allows us to give our suppliers the line of sight. So I was with one of our local suppliers earlier today, and he was very appreciative of the fact that he can look forward and say, the Tullow-led JV is going to invest $2.8 billion over the next 4 years. If he's got to go out and do risk capital, he can do that, right? So I think it's a systematic thing. It's about approaching it consistently, but having programs. So we're trying to make ourselves, not just these are big contracts, but on the smaller ones to make sure that, SMEs are able to access our procurement systems. Simply, sometimes people find that quite intimidating. Making sure people understand what the opportunity set is, so working closely with the Petroleum Commission. So I think this is all part of a very kind of systematic approach, but I'm pretty excited about the potential there.
Help me out on an update on those 6 new wells. I stand to be corrected. I mean, where have we gotten so far, and when are we hoping to finalize that, please?
Sorry, for the
6 new wells that you're working on.
Yeah.
What is the update on that, and when are you hoping to complete that?
So we have 6 wells planned for this year for Jubilee and 10. We're already done with one of those, and that's the plan for this year. So the investment plan this year is about drilling in both Jubilee and 10. So those plans are already in place, so we're now kind of in the execution mode. So we'll have those drilled by the end of the year. And in addition to that, we have some key infrastructure investments, one in Jubilee where we're investing in subsea manifolds, and then also in 10 where we'll create some infrastructure to hook up the wells we're drilling this year to drive production growth next year and beyond.
And what would be the impact of these wells on the daily output, production, and total output for Tullow going forward when they come on stream? So
what's interesting, George, is when you look at both Jubilee and 10, right? It's not just the 3 wells this year, but it's the 25 wells that we're drilling in Jubilee, and it's the similar amount in 10. And the impact of all of these, along with the infrastructure spend, which is the $2.8 billion that I talked about, that's what is going to take, we believe, is going to allow us to take Jubilee to over 100,000 barrels a day. And that's what is going to allow us to double production from 10 to over 50,000 barrels a day.
And all the Group CEO of Tullow speaking with George Rafi there.